Hello there. Today I will be reviewing the first studio album by Estonian singer-songwriter Kerli. She is one of my favorite artists of all time, and this album was my introduction to her music. This album was released on the 8th of July of 2008, but it's an album I keep coming back to. It has such a unique and eclectic sound that is not like anything else, especially her major label that she was signed to at the time, Island Records, was definitely putting out. She is no longer with that record label. There has been a whole lot of drama. I'll probably address that when I discuss her second studio EP, Utopia, in another video. But this review is all about her first album. And this is also to anyone who is unfamiliar with Kerli, though I have a feeling most people who are clicking on this video are probably Kerli fans or know of her and maybe consider themselves moon children. Moon children are the people that we consider ourselves followers and people who were inspired by Kerli. Everyone has names for their fan groups, but she didn't necessarily want us to be a fan group. She wanted us to be more like her friends and a community of like-minded individuals who can support each other. And she's very good about, even back in the MySpace days when this album was released, she generated this community of moon children kind of all on her own by just posting very insightful and very moving posts about her life. This record was made during her tumultuous teenage years, where she was struggling to get signed and recognized outside of Estonia and make it into the United States music market. She had a very tumultuous journey, and it's one that I might address in another video if anyone's interested, because her story is very inspiring, but it's also very dark and depressing. And this album is a reflection of that. This album has light and dark elements. This album was created when she was going through the darkest periods of her life, and she's talked about this very openly later on. In fact, one time where she was very suicidal at 17, which inspired her to write one of the songs on this record. The sound and album art and the visuals and everything surrounding this record can best be described by one critic who called her sound bubble goth. And she's since embraced that title to represent her own image. And the sounds of this record have some pop sensibilities. There's some Natasha Bedingfield inspired sounds in there. There's definitely some more uplifting tunes, but there's also a very punk, dark, gothic edge to her music, more reminiscent of Bjork, more reminiscent of Evanescence, more reminiscent of like Within Temptation. There's some really dark punk vibes in here, and she goes through a lot of different styles of music, and she experiments a lot with rock, alternative rock, indie, electronica, pop. All of these things are touched on. And it's interesting because she does stray from the sound of music later on. She kind of does a complete 180 and goes to form more dance pop music for her second album or second EP. But this record, for me, stands out because of its sort of unique sound. So getting right into this, I will say that Love Is Dead, the title track, although it is not my favorite song on this record, speaks volumes, and of course she titled the album Love Is Dead because it speaks volumes to where she was at this point in her life. And it speaks volumes to a point that I think almost all of us, especially all of us moon children, or any sensitive, creative person who doesn't feel quite like they belong in the world. The title Moon Children, by the way, comes from, she draws a lot of power and inspiration from the moon compared to the sun, and how, all of our emotions tend to come out at night, and sort of the divine feminine is played into that, and pagan vibes. All of these things play homage to the moniker, the Moon Children. And she actually used to wear 3 moon marks on her forehead to symbolize integrity, love, and unity, which were the 3 mantras that she wanted moon children to uphold, which I think she still does to this day. And it's a great sort of little personality grouping that she created as a fan group for us. And I hope that any moon children watching this video really appreciate this video, because I've been really looking forward to make it, because I am a humongous Kerli fan. I am a huge moon child. I'm actually wearing a Kerli shirt right now. This is something that she's working on for her 3rd studio album, which I'm so excited for. So I had to wear it for this video. Anyway, Love Is Dead is talking about the breakdown of a relationship on the surface, but it's also talking about society at large. She was inspired to write this song by, just seeing how, unfortunately, the world can be such a cruel place. And this album is a little bit more glass is half empty than glass half full, and she acknowledges that. This is an album she had to make. Her music has gotten a lot less dark than this, although I do appreciate the darkness because it's not without hope. None of this music is really without hope. but it is very dark, and I appreciate the juxtaposition of dark and light because it represents her personality so well. This was the first single that was released from the album, and it has probably the most indie rock vibes of a song that she has ever released. She doesn't necessarily, people who listen to this song, it's not exactly the best indicator for how the rest of the discography sounds. There are some songs in this record that follow suit with the heavy guitar. I love the guitar breakdown at the end of this song. It just builds and builds and builds. It's so heavy, it's so grinding. It's so like what you would expect, like, a heavy metal girl band from Finland. Estonia, by the way, where she is from, is close to Finland. So you get a little bit of that Nordic angst, and I don't know, it comes through in the vibes of this music, even though she doesn't talk about Finland culture very much, but Estonian culture is similar, and Estonia is actually a very interesting country, and it's one that I recently visited thanks to Kerli. But anyway, I'll talk about all that later. The second single, though, is the one I want to spend the most time talking about, Walking on Air. This was the song that somewhat got her recognition in the mainstream charts, definitely in Europe, but also in the US. This song was a free single of the week for a week in 2008 on iTunes, and this song had an amazing music video, which Island produced, which actually kind of got somewhat a good following from YouTube from. It's like an Alice in Wonderland gothic, topsy-turvy world aesthetic, which she's embraced later on throughout the rest of her career. And I love this song just because of how dark and yet hopeful it is. This song is the epitome of bubble goth. It starts out very creepy, like a creepy music box, and you think of creepy dolls, and the la 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 is unnerving, but it's got a little bit of a catch to it, like a pop song. And she starts out talking very autobiographically about her life and her upbringing in Estonia, where no one really believed in her. She was just this strange, weird little girl who always felt like she was something more than this small town of 5,000 people, or however many, that she lived with in Estonia, which she did. She grew up in a very small town in Estonia in the middle of a forest. Sounds so idyllic, doesn't it? But she since realized she actually really appreciated it. But back then as a teenager, she wanted to break out. She wanted to do something more. And, she talks about growing up in the post-Soviet era of Estonia and how the mindset took so long to change. When she was a child, there was still this communistic mindset of everyone will be the same and will work in the same shop and will not aspire to be anything more than the other person. And so back when she was a kid, it was hard. She rebelled against that. She was one of the first people in her school to dye her hair or to get a tattoo. And she remembers being mocked because of that, because everyone was just so conformist. And so this song is just blatantly telling you, I'll set the world on fire. She's so optimistic about her future. She's so I'm going to turn all this darkness and this creepy girl in this creepy town in this creepy world is going to set the world ablaze. And so in the music video, she's setting a fireplace on fire with butterflies and all of these beautiful sort of metaphors for her turning the world upside down, because the world is upside down. And Alice in Wonderland is a perfect aesthetic to embody, because we're all searching for wonder, and we're all searching for something that will literally make us feel as though we're walking on air. The image of the album art on the front cover is this doll that is so beautifully designed. The album art was designed by this Lithuanian artist, Natalie Shao, and it's one of my favorite album covers of all time. I love the color scheme. I love the creepy gothic / anime aspect of it. It's very cute but dark, and it's perfect. It fits the aesthetic of the album beautifully. And in one scene in the music video, she shows herself being controlled like a puppet or a doll by a larger puppet. And this imagery of puppets and dolls really fits into sort of the playful, childlike, innocent vibe that she's trying to hearken to, but expressing how there's such darkness to her childhood and that she's trying to break free from it. And she's trying to break free from her mind and escape into a better world. So ultimately, it's a really wonderful music video. I really recommend checking it out. I really recommend the track. It's got an amazing production. The people who worked on it are incredible. The sound of those synthesizers in the background really makes you feel like you're flying, even though it's got this amazing kind of dark sound to it. Can't applaud this song enough. The next track, The Creationist, is one that I will always lament never got a music video or was a single, because this song is definitely single worthy, and it is definitely a song that you can imagine being an anthem for the Moon Children, because it's talking about how life is our creation and our best friend, and how we always try to create a better world in our minds. We are freed from our minds when we're freed from fear. And so this song is so positive and uplifting, which coming from Love Is Dead is kind of a quite a direct contrast. This song and a few others like it on the album fit into the lighter half of this record. And I really do appreciate the lighter songs a little bit more than the darker ones, but I still find them all amazing in their own ways. The Creationist has the beautiful piano intro where she talks about an old and funny poem she once overheard. It kind of reminds you of like a child hearing a story from an elderly person singing some fairy tale. She's like turning a like life into some sort of fairy tale story. And there's such an vibe of fairy tales in this whole album and in her whole aesthetic and vibe. I mean, she does believe in fairies and she does talk about magic and the world, and she loves the dark forests and nature and paganism, and there's all of these things tied together. And so this song feels like an ode to letting go to the power of the mind and the universal consciousness of creation and freedom, and manifesting your world, manifesting your reality in a positive way by thinking positively. And it's a wise, wise, wise song. Something you would sing when you're way above your years, but she wrote this song when she was like 20, 19, 20 years old, which is incredible, maybe even younger. This album was released when she was 21 years old, but most of these songs were written more when she was back like 16, 15, 17, 18 years old, somewhere within that range. Then we come to a very, very different dark track called I Want Nothing. It's my least favorite song on the album, but she's basically hinting at an abusive relationship with her parents. She has stated that she's had grew up in an abusive household when she was young. And so she's translating this into a relationship now with a boyfriend, and she's talking about how she's not going to stand for any bullshit if this guy's going to start acting like her father did, or if some familial thing is going to repeat itself. I don't want anything to do with you. So don't treat me like that. It's brazen, it's in your face, it's punk. She's strayed from this image a whole lot, but you definitely sense an angsty teenager trying to let out all of her emotions. I'm sure this song was very cathartic for her to record. But then coming back, we swing back into the positive, except Up, 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 the fifth track on this album, has a little bit of a bittersweet tinge to it because it's a positive sounding song talking about life as it is. She's saying there's all these people going up, up, up in the world, and there are all these people staying down, down, down. And then she says, stay where you are. And this song, to me, even though it sounds so positive, this song is a reflection of the communist mindset that she grew up in, living in a post-Soviet era country that was still struggling to find its footings after it left the USSR. She's talking about how capitalism and communism conflate each other in the mindset of her town and her small village where she grew up. And she's talking about like how she was told to stay where she was, and she couldn't. She had to accept that some people were now on the up and up, which she was hoping to do, but other people are going to stay down no matter what. And the stay where you are could imply stay going up or stay going down. It could be both or not. It's a double-edged sword. And so she's objectively painting this reality for us without necessarily taking a side. She's not saying if this is good or bad. She's just stating reality as it is in a very sort of positive sounding guitar-led song, which is a really folky sound for her, which I really appreciate. It's probably one of the more folk, dare I say, almost country sounding songs she's ever created. Not to say that it is anything country sounding, but it does have more of just like a guitar feel or a banjo feel, and she's just sort of crooning along to this sort of rhythm. But it also has some beautiful, I love the micro beats in this album. There are some really neat bubble sounds and some interesting computer electronic noises that she employs just here and there in the song to remind you that there's still a lot of electronic vibes to this record that you can't hear right on the surface. And it signals stuff later to come because she gets huge into EDM later on. And so her interest in that was still back when she was doing more punk rock stuff. It was still very much in that aesthetic back then. Then we come to one of the most tragic love songs on this record, Bulletproof. This song is so tragic in its sound. It's broad, it has a sweeping guitar that just is so heavy, and it's not my favorite song, but it has a beautiful melody, especially in the verses. She's saying, I'm trying not to think about all the things you've done before. I'm trying to move on from this relationship, but you're hurting me. I'm not bulletproof, she whispers at the end of the song. She's referenced this as being one of the few actual love relationship songs that she has recorded. And this song for me speaks to a heartache that is just, I'm starting to really understand that at this point in my life. how tragic you can feel and how broken you can feel, and how when you put your walls up around you, when you've lived such a hard life, people might think you are bulletproof, but you're not. You may come off as hard and edgy, but you're so soft and vulnerable within. And Kerli definitely puts on a front of sometimes being really hard and edgy on this record, but she lets you know that deep down she's a very sensitive, emotive individual, and that is, she's not afraid to hide that in later works. But on this album, she's sort of trying to work with those teenage walls that she built up around herself back then, and she's expressing that now in such a beautiful way. Then we come to another positive song, probably the most positive song on this record, Beautiful Day. Sounds like positive enough. She's just singing about, hey, you know, life is crazy, but I wake up every morning and I have a lot to be thankful for. The sun is shining and I feel good. And this song has the most bouncy, adorable tune to it. This definitely feels the most Natasha Bedingfield of all of her stuff, because it really reminds me a little bit of Pocket Full of Sunshine. The vibe of it just does feel a little bit in that vein. It's like pop with some electronic influences. It has this beautiful strumming guitar in the background that feels so whimsical and idyllic. It fits the vibe of this record so well, and I'm so glad she includes these lighter songs. So when people say, oh, this is such a dark and depressing album, you have to pull out songs like The Creationist, you have to pull out songs like Beautiful Day, and Somewhat Walking on Air, and realize that there are some really positive sides to this record. It signals sort of a mindset I think she's more trying to achieve. I think she really did write this song later on. I don't think she wrote this song when she was going through a lot back in Estonia as a teenager. And she also lived in Stockholm for a little while, actually, where she almost lived off of nothing but rice for like 3 months as she was struggling to be a songwriter, singer in the industry. Then we follow that up with another lead single off of this record, Creepshow, another huge favorite of mine. This song is like, welcome to Kerli. If Kerli had a TV show, if her life was a TV show, this would be the theme song. And you know what? It's the theme song to my life as well. Creepshow is the most bubble goth-tastic song you can imagine. It's also the most Evanescence-sounding song of the record because it has such a heavy metal aesthetic, or maybe a little bit more like Within Temptation or Nightwish, some of those dark Finnish, or European heavy metal bands fronted by female vocalists. She sings in such a raspy way, I'm from a land called Secret Estonia. Nobody knows where it's at. Well, yeah, Estonia is a really small country, just below Finland, west of Russia, just above Latvia, and east of Sweden. In case anyone doesn't know where this country is, it's a beautiful country. It is definitely on the up and up from post-Soviet era communism. And it is definitely becoming, especially at the capital city, Tallinn, a very big tourist destination. Thanks a lot to Kerli, because she's done a lot for tourism of Estonia. I mean, she's the reason I visited this country. The music video for this song is so interesting to me. It doesn't feature her at all, but it features this beautiful animation of her represented as like this fairy doll thing walking around this forest, presumably Estonia, which is this magical, mythical world. And she's, encountering all these people, these animals, these creatures, a witch and a wizard. She's embodying this fairy tale of what Estonia could be. And she's playing homage to sort of the dark, twisted particularly Eastern European fairy tales that you get from like countries like Germany and the Czech Republic and Eastern Europe, Poland, Russia, all of those places. They have these very rich, dark fairy tales. And this song is like a heavy rock song depicting it. She even sings in her native tongue, Estonian, for the bridge. And I think she's reciting this old, children's poem. I can't remember, but it's so cute the way the song has that included. So it is dark. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because it reminds me of Tim Burton, and Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory remake, which I actually really love. I mean, everyone praises the original, but I love the 2005 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I love it. Johnny Depp, it's one of my favorite roles of his, and it's one of my favorite Tim Burton films. It has such a Tim Burton aesthetic, the music video and the song, where, she's singing about ice cream fountains, mountains, and chocolate skies. She's combining, all of these, the Hansel and Gretel and the, gritty realness of reality. She's, molding it all together into this amalgamation of, dark fairy tale magic. And it's so Tim Burton, and she has said Tim Burton is an inspiration for her music. And so I see that influence here. And this song, it's an ode to Estonia, but it's not taking itself too seriously. but it is letting you know, especially any Westerners know, that there's some like really weird kind of dark stuff going on in Eastern Europe, but I'm always vibing with it, and I'm always interested, and it's made me very interested in these countries because of it. Then we come to the song Hurt Me. This is probably one of the more dire and dark songs on the record. This is going back to I Want Nothing. She's talking about this repeated cycle of abuse that she may be experiencing from a boyfriend. She's saying, well, go on then, hurt me. If it makes you so happy, I give up. And unfortunately, it is a very defeatist song. But she's saying, you know, you hate when I'm around. You act like, you know, I'm worthless. So treat me like I'm worthless. I don't care anymore. I can tell that this song was made when she was going through one of the darkest moments in her life. But I will say that although it's dark, it has a very sort of ambient sort of vibe to it towards the end. And it has some beautiful electronic, you know, overlays, you know, which makes you really feel like she's this fairy singing this song, you know, like she turns herself into this creature and she's just wailing for someone to treat her right, you know, like, what the hell, you know, like, why does this repeat itself? And so if you wanted to point to a song where you say, yeah, this is a dark album, you would point to this song probably. But the following song represents her coming out of it. The song Butterfly Cry is my favorite song on this album after Walking on Air. This song was written when she came out of one of the worst depressions of her life at 17 years old. She speaks of coming out of a house and just feeling the rain on her skin and just realizing that she just wanted to let go of everything. She wanted to let go of all this hatred, all this fear, all this pain, and she just wanted to let the butterflies cry. So Butterfly Cry, it's bubble and goth. It's putting a symbol of like joy, innocence, girlhood, and cry. She's talking about accepting the sadness. This song is it has a depressing tone. It's very slow paced. It takes a while to build up, and it has some very dark lyrics where she says like, did I kill you? Did I make you bleed inside? I didn't mean to make you hide yourself. Find you in you, beautiful. Do not grow the seeds of pain in you. Goodbye. Let the butterflies cry. Let them cry for you. You just dry your eyes, because the world is wonderful. And when she sings because the world is wonderful, that's when the tone of the song shifts to being more hopeful in the sound of it. And it just, when I first heard it, everything that I was feeling when I was 17 years old, when I discovered this song, ironically, came to light to me, and I couldn't help but cry to this song because it was like this beautiful release of all this pain and accepting that the world is so dark and so tragic and hurtful, but it's also beautiful at the same time if we let ourselves let love in, if we release all of this pain, if we let ourselves cry it out, we let our emotions breathe and find a way to deal with them better. And so this song for me signified a shift in my consciousness in terms of, well, first of all, I knew Kerli was someone that I was going to always be interested in for the rest of my life from this song alone. But second of all, it made me really realize I needed to analyze my emotions and how they work and try and overcome my depression and build from it. And yes, I've been struggling in subsequent years, but every now and then I come back to this song. It is very dark, but it has such hope to it. And you can only imagine what this song means for her. I mean, I'd imagine it's very hard for her to sing live. She hasn't sung it live very often because it's just so dark and so meaningful of a song, but with such a beautiful melody, such a beautiful sentiment. The imagery conducted by the lyrics, it signifies hope beyond hope, hope beyond suicide, hope beyond, feeling as though the world is over. We wrap up the album with the two songs, Strange Boy and Fragile. Strange Boy is a little bit more of a cheeky, fun pop rock song, which has a pounding guitar, and she says, "You should never leave me home alone, heaven knows what I might get into." She's basically putting herself in a little bit more of a playful, kind of risque position, and she's talking about finding a lover. And it's unique for the rest of the record because it's so playful and cheeky and maybe not so dark, but she's talking about a potential boyfriend and saying he might be different than the rest. He's strange, he's different, innocent. You're here, magnificent. I want to see what's up with you. And then the song Fragile closes out the album with the sentiment summarizing how she feels. I may look like I have all my walls up, but I am fragile too. I will be fine as the time goes by, but I need to heal from this. I need to let this darkness out. And so Fragile is saying, you know, like, don't judge a book by its cover, don't judge anyone, period. You know, I'm fragile just like you. I can be ice cold, or I could be, you know, a flower. You know, I can, it just depends on how you treat me and my emotions. And all of these things need to come together. It's a really beautiful, kind of, again, going back to more of a childlike melody. And she does talk about in the songwriting, thinking the songwriting's not very developed. I disagree with her. I think the songwriting on some of these songs is really well, you know, especially for the age that she was writing this, was with a teenager. I think the songwriting on this album is very advanced for her age, and I think she has some beautiful, truly beautiful lyrics and lines in these songs. The bonus track on this record, Heal, is also, I just wanted to give a shout out. It's very punk and goth. She's basically talking about, like, possibly like a drug experience. She said she was also inspired because she was recording in the studio that was supposedly super haunted. So the ending is so spaced out and vibey, and she's trying to channel this, like, ghostly presence in the studio. I just had to give a shout out. It's a really nice track. I don't listen to it that often. It's very drawn out and it's a little hard hitting, but it has some, like, really cool dark lyrics and some trippy stuff going on. So for production especially, it's a really interesting track to check out. Overall, you can tell that this record was a huge deal for her, and I can't believe it's almost 10 years old, and I can't believe it's 7 years since I first heard it, because it fundamentally changed my life, hearing this record, watching these music videos, discovering Kerli from this album, watching her interviews from this time period when she was promoting it, and it made me a Moonchild for life. And I am so excited, and always have been, to see where she continues to evolve. You know, she still is that same creepy girl from Estonia all this time now that she's 30 years old. She's happily back living in her hometown of Estonia with her grandparents, and she's building this moon temple, which I'm so excited to see finished. And she's finishing up her third studio album, which I cannot wait to review and listen to, because it has been long overdue. So, all of this being said, I highly recommend Kerli if you're not familiar with her. I really am interested to know, Moonchildren, what your experiences with first time listening to Kerli's music was, because her music, it's reached people all over the world. You know, she's really done something here. And this album is very teenage, like angsty, but it's still so much more than that. It has such a universal appeal. She does mention Bjork as one of her biggest inspirations, and she said that listening to Bjork's music helped her translate her sound, and I can hear the influences in that as well. There's also a little bit of Avril Lavigne spiced in there. I mean, she does look a lot like Avril, so she's always invited that comparison. But all in all, I have to praise this record. The production, the quality of the visuals, the album art, the back cover, this girl singing on a swing in this beautiful environment is such a great aesthetic to embody. And I just love the dark, twisted fairy tale that this album speaks of. It's turning something that could be really dark, but it's turning it light in a way that makes it so interesting. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's not glossing over the darkness by any means, but it's making the child in you feel something. It's playing to the childhood innocence of us yearning for love. And now she does say she does not believe that love is dead anymore. But I know that that was the phase of her life, and this song represents that. And I know we all go through this phase, especially us Moonchildren, our love is dead phase. I'm hopefully coming out of it, but we'll see. It's a long process. So let me know what you thought of this review. I do plan on reviewing her second studio EP from Island Records, Utopia. And then also I will, of course, really review any new music that she releases coming out. And of course, her third studio album, which we are possibly going to be getting in the next few months into 2018. So I am really looking forward to seeing where she goes with that, because she says it's a bit of a mix of Love is Dead and something different and something new and more magical and ethereal. So thank you for watching. To all my fellow Moonchildren out there, integrity, love, and unity. Bye.